Hi there, do you use generative AI such as ChatGPT to write at work? If so, you are among an estimated 50%, maybe even 90% of Australian workers who do. Meanwhile, of course, only around 30% of workplaces officially condone the use of these tools. So it's an area that's become quite complex at the moment. It's become a sort of a battleground too between professionals who are quite proud of the efficiencies they gain from using AI and others who resent that it even exists, let alone that some of their colleagues are using it. My name's Stephanie and I've helped thousands of professionals to write more clear, concise and audience-centric messages across a range of different channels. I've been updating my materials recently to help clients understand how to use these tools more effectively while still drawing on timeless writing craft, so ultimately they own the message. So I'm going to share some high-level thoughts, starting with how not to use AI. Firstly, remember that AI's outputs can be quite generic unless you give it really specific prompts. For example, if you ask your AI to summarize this table of data, it will literally generate a dot-pointed list of outputs that are no different than what you can see for yourself from that table. By contrast, if you have a specific objective and you direct your AI towards that, you're going to get a very different result. So you might say, based on the sales results of the past quarter, propose some possible tactics for our marketing team to use in their next quarter's marketing strategy. So you can already see you're going to get some quite valuable insights if you go about it that way. The next thing to know is that AI can't guess at context. For example, if you ask AI to write a resignation letter, it won't first stop to ask whether you need any tips on how to leave your job effectively without burning any bridges. It just writes the letter for you. And this happened to an executive friend of mine. She received a very obvious ChatGPT letter from a colleague who she actually had quite a long-standing and good working relationship with. Not only did the letter sound very fake, very unlike that person, it should have been the last action taken after perhaps some conversations and a couple of other activities. All right, so let's have a look at next, how should you be using AI? And of course, the first thing is to make sure that you are being ethical about your usage. That means understanding the security risks, consult with your workplace to find out which are the preferred tools, which ones are going to have the least risk of your valuable corporate data from leaking beyond the setting of that AI. Find out also the different data security classifications of the material you're working with. And finally, be transparent with your team about how you've used the AI, whether you just used it to brainstorm ideas or whether you went a little deeper. The second thing is to make sure that you have distilled and analysed the material yourself. Don't run the risk of being in a meeting and being asked to expand on your fantastic idea and being unable to do so because you didn't do the thinking yourself. And the third thing is to get used to building in a little bit of AI playtime in between major editing phases so that you really get your own sense of its strengths and weaknesses and how it can support your role and your writing style. So for example, you might have this draft and think, right, I'm actually going to ask ChatGPT or your other tool to propose different possible interpretations of this data, or simply to make my headings punchier, or even predict objections to my initiative. AI is changing the way that we write, but remember your insights, judgment, and original voice matter the most. Start small, experiment often, and be sure you own the final message. Thanks for watching, and do reach out if you have any questions.